Hello and welcome to this Sharp podcast. I'm Jacques Buys and I'm a respiratory medical lead at Teva Pharmaceuticals. I'm joined today by Fabienne Jean, who is the National Coordinator for Severe Asthma in Switzerland, based at the Kantonsspital in Basel. Together we are talking to Olivia Fulton, who is a severe asthma patient and co-chair of Sharp. Olivia is also involved with a number of different patient advocacy groups associated with asthma and severe asthma. Olivia, can you tell us why it's so important and beneficial to you to be involved in Sharp, and also what you can offer as a patient?
Sharp being this severe heterogeneous asthma research collaboration that's patient-centred, and I think the P at the end of Sharp is one of the most important parts for patients because it's the patient-centred. And I think the reason why it's so important is because people have had severe asthma for so long, but have had their lives dictated by it. So every aspect of what they want to do, the severe asthma needs to be considered. So you can't live your life how you would like without thinking about it. So Sharp in many ways is essential for people with severe asthma because it is looking not just at one specific country, but it is taking data from across the whole of Europe, bringing together specialists in academia, industry, pharma, scientists to try and really solve the problem of what is severe asthma and how can people with it live their life without having to constantly think about it. Because just now I'm in a very sort of controlled patch with my asthma, yet I still have to think. I have to make sure I've taken all my medication, which happens throughout the day. Then I have to make sure I have medication with me to take in case something happens. So there's all of this that's going on, as well as I need to get out the door. I need to make sure I have my keys and my phone and everything else. So it's a real juggle, and it's part of life that could really be made a lot easier with some more understanding. And I think this is where Sharp can really make that difference and why it's really important, because too many people are suffering and ultimately dying as well. It's not the way you want to live. And to be involved in a consortium where so many people are dedicating their lives to making our lives better, it's really eye-opening because it makes you feel better. It makes me think, yes, there are people trying to help me. I'm not stuck in this rut forever. There are people who are trying to make changes to make our life better.
When I heard you talking, I was just thinking to get involved in such a great group, getting some control, something I can control, I can get involved, I can participate, I get heard. And I think that's very important for future research. And I think it was very nice listening to you as you said that, how important it is for patients to get involved in research, to get the chance to have a voice on something that's having kind of control over your life.
So I was speaking to someone yesterday because it was World Mental Health Day, and I was asked to speak about how I use my voice as a patient and lived experience to bring about change and how that benefits my mental health. And you said it just there, that it's patient involvement and patient advocacy is the one area that no matter where I am or how I feel, I could still do. Whereas, and it's the same for many other severe asthmatics, we've had to stop so much. And we can try something, but it may be that we need to stop it. So I've had to stop playing sport at international level. I've had to change my career, stop my career. But throughout all of that, I have never had to stop doing my patient involvement and advocacy work, because I can do it here in my flat, or I can read patient information sheets if I want when I'm in hospital, and send emails or tweets and things. So it's something you can always do and you can always control in a world where you can't control a lot. And it makes a difference.
And you're involved in Sharp now, and we all know you as
really involved in this community, as a matter of fact, with researchers, industry, clinicians. What was your biggest eye-opener now since you are involved in SHARP? What really gave you an insight which you didn't have before?
I think one of the biggest insights is that, and I think it comes from the fact that SHARP brings multi-stakeholders together into one group. So we're all members of SHARP. Before, I would be involved in different research projects or engagement events, and it tended to be one sort of stakeholder. And I would often be told, oh no, well, we can't do multiple stakeholders because we all have different agendas and we all work differently, and there's barriers to bringing patients in to speak to industry, and all of these comments would come at me. But I was always questioning, but you need all these different people together. So when I was involved in SHARP, I've seen that actually a lot of what I was told, to say it wasn't true is the wrong word, because people probably did think it was true, but it shows that all of these different stakeholders can work together and there isn't boundaries between each other and with what we can do. The only real boundary that we have is how much money we have to do the work we want. So being able to see everyone working in a coherent unit, and it doesn't matter if you're from pharma or if you're a national lead or a patient or a statistician, whoever, everyone's just there with the same end goal. To say it shocked me would be the wrong word, but it was refreshing, because I was getting frustrated before when I was at something and people would be talking about designing an app, but it wouldn't get to a certain stage because they didn't have an industry investment or something. And I was getting frustrated by that, because I was thinking, what's the point in doing this if it's not really going to benefit people at the end? Whereas in SHARP, we have everyone sitting at the table to benefit us as patients at the end, but essentially it will also benefit clinicians, because it'll make their life easier by hopefully not having nearly as many severe asthma patients to deal with. So that's been the thing that I've really enjoyed coming to SHARP and seeing just how everyone kind of gets stuck in no matter who you are.
Also, patients can say what is important or what is important for them, what we need as patients, or what do you need as a patient in the end, what kind of care do you need, and what do you wish from researchers. So it's also an opportunity for you to get heard, and for the researchers, scientists, and everyone who is involved in SHARP to hear different perspectives, and also kind of the perspective from the patient, which is in the end the one that should profit.
And I think that's where SHARP has been really ahead of its game in some way, because I remember having a conversation with Ratko, one of the co-chairs, and he was quite shocked when he heard us as patients, and then a study from within SHARP also highlighted this about the problem of living with fatigue because of our severe asthma. And he was sort of shocked that this was such an issue. And then I've spoken to other clinicians as a result, and it's because particularly when clinicians see a severe asthmatic, it's either for sort of 10 minutes in clinic, or it's the very acute phase when they're in the hospital needing a lot of intervention to get their lungs stabilised. So you don't see that day-to-day actual living and how that feels like. And being able to bring that to the front and bring that to the research questions has made such a difference, because it means we're not just looking at sort of cure severe asthma, we're looking at also things that, what are the difficult bits of living with it, which you don't see. If you were to meet me for the first time just now speaking here, I don't look any different, I don't sound any different, but across the room I have my nebulizer machine and all my tablets, and that's different, but people don't see it. By being able to speak about that, that's what helps make the research really relevant, to really make the difference, because it's not clinicians and academics' fault. They don't look at these aspects, but it's just because you don't see it. If you could see fatigue, then people would be much more aware about it and do something. It's these unseen things that you live with, and that's where the patients come in with SHARP, is to really voice these areas of concerns and help develop ways in which we can understand it more and we can do something to help.
It's so important that we hear the patient and hear where the problem is, and it's so great that patients are involved in this project.
I think what it's also done as well for me is that it's not just been about me speaking about living with the condition, but I've also been able to understand from other stakeholders, to see where they're coming from, the budgets and things they have to work with, the end goals they have to meet. Those kind of things really helped me understand things, because before I had no clue and I just kind of thought, well, people aren't doing the right thing. Why not? They should. But now I can see why and where the barriers are and policies and all of that dictate how people have to work.
Do you think that patients in SHARP have the same standing as all other stakeholders?
Patients do have the same standing, but I don't think all patients see themselves as having the same standing, if that makes sense. For me, I've been involved in patient involvement and being a patient partner for over 10 years now. But the very first meeting I attended as a patient, I was asked to stand up and give a few words. And it's still on YouTube, but I started crying because I got so emotional about speaking about my own experience. Whereas now I can speak about my experience and voice how I feel and where I think change needs to be, because I have that confidence. So I see myself when I attend meetings as totally equal. I'm happy to put my hand up because I know that my voice as a patient is wanted and it's needed. Whereas if you were to ask me this 10 years ago, when I was first starting out, I would say no. And it was because I didn't have confidence to be able to speak up and say my opinions and my thoughts. And I think sometimes within these big sort of consortia, it can be different when you're a new person to come in and putting your hand up and speaking in front of lots of people you don't know. So while I do think that, yes, patients have the same standing, I don't think all patients appreciate that they do have the same standing because they sort of don't have the confidence to sort of put themselves forward. We sometimes potentially need to be a bit more conscious of asking, is there any patients that want to speak, want to say something?
How can we encourage patients getting involved in research?
I got involved in research through frustration. I didn't actually set out to get involved in research. I did an awareness thing because I wanted people to see what it was like to live with severe asthma day to day. And I think what we need to do is make it attractive to patients. And just now, many patients don't get involved in things because we often forget that generally patients still have jobs. So patients can't always just take a couple of hours off easily because they want to attend a focus group or they want to attend a meeting that we are putting on. So that's almost a barrier sometimes to them being involved, because when you have severe asthma, you're off work quite a lot anyway. So you don't want to be taking any more time off if you can avoid it, because you want to do all you can to keep your job. So I think that's one of the reasons why patients don't always get involved. And I think as well, sometimes there's this sort of thinking that research isn't the world for patients. And when I say that, I don't mean that patients shouldn't be involved in research. I mean, from a general public point of view, you hear research and you think of all of these big terms and clinical trials that are very complex. So it puts people off. But I think if somehow we can change the perception of research and encourage more patients to see the value of being involved in research and advocacy has helped me so much more understand my condition and understand the roles that my clinicians have and care team have. So I'm a far less angry patient than I ever was before, because I'm doing something good with a really rubbish situation. But there is a positive coming out of it in that can use my situation to help research, to hopefully prevent someone else down the line experiencing that same thing. So I think if we can encourage some patients that you can use your bad experience for good and show them more about what they'll get out of it than just the fact that there's going to be a research paper, because being involved is so much more.
Olivia, you have a lot of experience as a patient. You can share it clearly. What kind of message can you give to healthcare professionals who are not involved in SHARP, so who deal on a day-to-day basis with severe asthma patients, but do not have the opportunity to be part of SHARP?
I think, and this would go to any long-term condition that's quite serious, and it's to listen to your patient and work with your patient, because one of the hardest things is having to take a treatment when you don't know how it's going to benefit you or how it's going to impact your life. It would be about 20 years ago, I was told to take all of this treatment and didn't, because I was fed up of being given something to make me feel better, to then have it taken away again once I felt better, and I would feel worse again. So to me, I thought, what's the point? And then I spoke to a consultant who actually stopped and asked me what matters in my life and what do I want to achieve. And for me, it was stability. And doing the treatment regime that I was being given wasn't giving me stability. It was giving me that chocolate and then taking it away. So I would encourage clinicians who are not involved in SHARP is just to speak to your patients about what matters, how they see themselves, because some patients want to have their clinician telling them what to do every step of the way. I feel it needs to be more of a partnership. And if people aren't involved in SHARP and feel that they don't have the networks and things, well, we now have the website, so you can look online at the website. You can have a look and see who the national leads are for your country and get in touch with them and ask for advice, because everyone is coming at this with the same end goal, and it's to help make lives of people with severe asthma better. So if there's clinicians not involved in SHARP, I would say get involved, because it's fantastic. But the first step to doing that is find out if your country's involved and go from there. And if your country's not involved, it doesn't mean that's the end. You can still sort of get in touch with SHARP, speak to people and see what it is, how it can help you in your practice to help patients, because why else are we doing all of this than to help the patients?
And I have the same question. Which advice can you share with other severe asthma patients who are still, like you, struggling with the disease, but are not involved in SHARP, are not aware of SHARP? What kind of advice can you give them?
I would encourage people to get involved where they can, because it gives you so much more than just an understanding of severe asthma, but it gives you an understanding of how pharma works, how clinicians work, how academics work, and also how the policy makers work. And that's a really important thing from an asthmatic point of view, because I can now see how all of these different stakeholders link together, whereas before I had no clue and thought no one was doing anything. But since joining SHARP, I can see how much is being done. And I also see how much it has benefited me in my own understanding of my condition. While I don't always understand everything that's going on in SHARP, you hear snippets here and there and you think, oh yes, that could be me. And you take hope, because it also highlights that you're not alone. And I think as SHARP, we are very much a family and everyone's in it together and looking out for each other. So I think as patients, definitely get in touch. It's not always for everyone, but you don't know until you've tried it. For me, it has changed my mindset. It has given me something to do when everything else has been taken away. And I know that there's probably a lot of other people out there in the same boat. And our mental health can only improve if we have an understanding of our physical health and why it's going so wrong in a severe asthma context.
Wow. Very interesting that you really shared your vision on an experienced patient with severe asthma who's also taking the accountability to improve from the patient side. So I'm really very grateful that you are willing to share your thoughts and your insights with us. Hopefully other patients and healthcare providers can benefit from this podcast.
I hope so. That's the aim. And hopefully we'll see lots more patients joining.
If you'd like to hear more podcasts about the work being done by SHARP from the perspectives of different stakeholders, then visit the SHARP website at europeanlung.org/SHARP. You can also find additional information about SHARP projects and research programs, as well as how to join the SHARP CRC by visiting the website.